Hello and welcome to the third installment of my Start to Stage ukulele course. I have tried to record this twice already, but my computer did not support the video from my new camera, so unfortunately I'm having to use the original old camera, so I apologise for the lack of quality. Now, this video is solely about right hand technique. I believe this to be the most important video of my entire series. This is because, as I've said before, you must build the fundamentals before you move on to playing songs. This is simply because when you move on to a more advanced level and you want to learn more advanced techniques, then you will be hindered by not having learnt the basics first. So the right hand technique. The right hand technique must take precedence over all else to begin with when you're starting out. And so that's why I believe that this video is the most important video. Now I'm going to be showing you quite a few right hand techniques in this video. Some of them will have their own video later on because some of them are quite complex to actually explain, and I don't have the time in this video to go through them in depth. Now, first of all, when referring to the right hand, we must first know how the right hand is labelled, how the fingers are indicated on musical scores in written music. Now, with the left hand, it's simple because it's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how they're labelled. However, with the right hand, it's a little bit different. We use the alphabet to name the right hand. Now, it's important that you learn this because if you read, especially old musical scores, you will need to know the correct fingering or the suggested fingering, which will be indicated by what I'm about to tell you. Now, the letters go as such. The thumb is P. Now, these are from other languages. So the thumb is P, which stands for pulgar. The index finger is I. Middle finger is M. This finger is A for annular. So A. And the little finger is Chiquita, which means little. Now that's rarely written into music, but you will see it occasionally, and it's either written as C or CH. Now, in all future videos, I will refer to the right hand fingers as I have just said. So it's important to learn them before going on to the next videos. So again, that's P, I, M, A, C or CH. I'll be using C in my videos. Now that you've got that, the next thing to consider is where to pluck with the right hand on the string. Now this may seem obvious or even overlooked. You know, when you're playing, you just pluck wherever. However, there are a lot of tonal variations between where you pluck on the string. For example, if you play closer to the bridge, you get a very accented, very kind of punchy sound compared to... There is a difference there. Now the sustain, so how long the note lasts, is greater the nearer you are to the middle of the string, and it obviously is shorter towards the bridge. So bear that in mind when playing. The other thing to bear in mind is whether you are playing with an electro ukulele, so one that has a pickup, or whether you are playing either acoustically or in front of a microphone. One of the mistakes which I often see people making is that they are either playing acoustically or toward a mic and covering the sound hole. Now you don't want to do this because it reduces the projection of the instrument, because much of the sound comes from the sound hole, hence the name. Now there are a few techniques whereby you would cover the sound hole. These techniques typically come from the balalaika. Now in another video I will show those different techniques. But for the meantime, wherever possible, when playing in front of a mic or acoustically, one should always keep the hand away from the sound hole. So back here. Okay, now if you're playing an electro acoustic uke, as I am, so I have a pickup underneath the saddle here, this doesn't really matter as much. I also have a microphone on the inside, so it doesn't matter as much because I'm not. I do have a microphone here, but I'm also going through an amp, so it doesn't matter as much for me. But if you're playing, as I said, acoustically or towards a mic, then do not cover the sound hole as much as possible. Now, the next thing I want to cover is the subject of nails. Should you have long nails or should you have short nails or medium, whatever? To be honest, it's a matter of preference which sound you like. I like to have short nails, so I keep my, especially the first two fingers, I keep them short because I don't really like the sound, the clicking that goes with the nails. I much prefer to be able to feel the strings as well, and I feel that I can play. I'm just more in touch with the strings, and I prefer. So I have very short nails on my right hand. Now, so that I mean, I will cover that again in another video, and if you are using longer nails to play, then I will cover how you can adjust your playing techniques so as to get the most pleasing sound out of it. So if you're getting like a scratching sound or something like that, or excessive clicking noises, there are ways to reduce that, and I will cover that in another video. Now, the next thing to cover is there are two different types of plucking. Two different types of plucking the string, which you need to distinguish between, again in terms of tonal variation. Now the first one, now this was used in Baroque music, classical guitar music, so it's a much older technique, and it's called free strokes. Now free strokes is, like I say, the camera isn't brilliant, but I will come in closer so you can see. Free stroke is where you pluck the string. So I'm going to pluck the highest string right now. So you pluck and you come off the string. If I show that from the side, you're plucking the string and coming up. Okay? Now, rest strokes, which were made popular by flamenco guitarists, you pluck the string and you come to rest on the next string. You see how I'm resting on the next string there? And from the side, so the finger isn't coming up like the free stroke. It's not coming up off the strings. Now if you're using two fingers, then you go down, down, down. So you're resting on the next string for the rest strokes. If it's a free stroke, you bring them up and you're not resting on anything. So those essentially are the two different ways of plucking the string. Now, they are used typically in different ways. You will typically use the free stroke if you're doing arpeggios, playing chordal music, something like I was using all free strokes there. If you want the notes to ring and for them to be mellow, not too accented, then that is the technique that you'd use. Now, rest strokes, on the other hand, have a much more punctuated sound about them and sound more like this. Okay, so they're much more accented there. And you would typically use that technique for lead lines, melodic scale playing. The idea is that if you were playing with somebody else, then the rest strokes would be more powerful and you would hear them over the top. Or, for example, if you can combine them, if you had a free stroke on the bottom string, if you had a ringing note, and then like that. So you have the free strokes on the bottom, so you're just plucking the bottom string, and then you have the rest strokes at the top, which are the more accented notes. Okay. Now the next thing I get asked about the most, it's the technique that I use the most, and maybe overuse it a little, which is the tremolo. Now essentially what that sounds like is like this. And essentially what I'm doing there is using the thumb, so P, I, M, A, in that order. So I'm thumbing the bottom string, holding a chord up at the top, and then I, M, A on the top string, so the very high string. And then what I'm doing is I'm moving my thumb up the string, so like this, with a triplet of these three fingers in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like such. Okay. Now you can also do that with two fingers, so you have the two finger tremolo, which sounds like this. Now it is rare that I will use a 4-finger tremolo, so that's using all the fingers, and I will use them for techniques that sound like this. So what I'm doing is I'm drawing all the fingers up there in quick succession. Like that. Now, tremolo is something that I will cover extensively in another video. I'll do a whole video on that because the technique behind it feeds into a lot of other techniques. And once you learn to tremolo, you can do most right hand techniques. So it's even if you don't want to play tremolo, it is worth learning simply for the coordination benefits that it gives you. Now the next technique is quite an advanced technique. If you were doing it in the conventional way, if you were learning later on the advanced techniques later on, I do not support that idea. I believe that you should learn all the right hand techniques right at the beginning so you have a nice solid basis, really strong right hand. Now, this technique is called palm muting. You may be familiar with this if you play guitar or any other number of plucked instruments. Now, I will show how this works. You take the hand, the blade of the hand, so the side of the palm right here. The way to start doing this is to rest that part of your palm on the bridge so that the strings are still free, just as they normally are, and then slowly move your hand towards the strings and watch how as I play they become muffled. There. Now you can still hear the tones of the strings, but they're very muffled. So you don't want this sound. You don't want that sound, you want this sound. So they're just muffled. Now, That is palm muting essentially. But what you want to do next is with keeping your hand exactly where it is, palm muting the strings, you want to curl your hands round. Remember, keeping the palm right there, so you can pluck the strings. So P, I, M, A, P, I, M, A, P, I, M, A. And then go the other way. A, M, I, P. And alternate. Okay. And then you can practice even strumming with just the middle finger. Like such. So flicking along the strings. Like this. Always keeping the hands right there. So not this, so you've got a click, but just like that. So you can still hear the tones of the strings. Okay. Now, there are a few techniques that are similar to palm muting, which I will save for another video. I've written down quite a few here, but I'll cover them in a further palm muting video, because it is quite an advanced technique and there are other variations on that. Now, the next technique I'd like to discuss is very much a flamenco technique. Many people do use it for ukulele playing, and it's called the golpe. And essentially what it is, it's a percussive technique. And the way that goes is as such. So you choose your strongest finger. Typically people will use the annular finger, so this finger. And you want to hit the instrument in this area. Now I prefer to use my middle finger because it's much stronger. So you tap like this. Not too hard because you'll damage the instrument. This is why flamenco guitars have the fingerboard right here to protect from this kind of technique. So just get used to that feeling. Just practice doing that. Okay, and then what you want to do is between the percussive notes, you want to strike up with the first finger, so strum up. So okay, that's essentially the technique. You can make it more complicated by adding different rhythms in. Now, the next technique, that is a technique that I'll come back to when I do percussive. There'll be a video on percussive playing, and it'll cover that and many other percussive techniques. Along with the next one I'm going to talk about, which is called tambor, or tamburo. And essentially what this is another technique that I use a lot, and I really love this technique. It is where you strike near the saddle with the thumb, just like that. You strike all the strings. You can do it with your fingers even. So it sounds the notes, but you're hitting it, and you can do chords with this as well. Now typically I use the thumb with this, and what I do is I'll make a rhythm. So I'm muting the strings up at the top. So I'm going like such. And then I'll add the chords on top. And then I can even add another rhythm on top of that. So as well as having the underneath, I can add another finger along with that and add an entirely new rhythm. And then maybe I want to add a double tambor, which will sound like this. Okay, so that's the tambor technique. Now the next technique I'd like to cover is, this will be a video on itself in the future, because it's quite an extensive topic, and that is right hand tapping. So without utilizing the left hand at all, okay, like such. Now for a closer view of what I'm doing there, so I use the left hand to steady the ukulele. So what I'm doing is, let's take the 3rd fret. I'll do it with the middle finger, and you're hitting right before the fret, like that. And then pulling to the side. So you're pulling on the string and plucking. So hit and pluck, hit, pluck. And you do 2 strings at the same time. Now, like I say, that'll be a technique that I'll cover extensively in a further video. There really is a lot you can do that, especially when you start adding in the left hand as well. Okay. Now, the next technique, just a couple more to go, is koto harmonics. Now this comes from a Japanese instrument of the same name. Essentially it's like a harp, and you can move the bridge of each string. So each string you can change the length of the string to create different notes. Now this replicates a technique which is used on that instrument. Essentially what you're doing is you'll be holding down a chord, but instead of playing it like that, you'll be playing the harmonics. Now, if you're not familiar with harmonics, if you look at the 12th fret, if you lightly hold your finger over the 12th fret on any of the strings, and I've got the EQ set here. Like that. What I'm doing there is lightly holding the string. So I'm not pressing down, and as soon as I've plucked, I let go of the string. Now, I will have a whole video on how to do this, how to do different types of harmonics. But the coda technique is essentially where you hold down a chord. So even if I'm just using the 1st fret on the 2nd string right there, like such. Now that'll be a technique that I explore in another video. It'll be a harmonics video. There'll be a whole video about that. Now the final technique that I would like to show you in this video is called double thumbing. Now this is a bass technique. I play bass also, and this is a technique that I utilize a lot on that. And essentially what you're doing is, you're not just plucking in one direction with the thumb, so you're not just going down like you would normally, but you also bring the string, the thumb back up again, So you pluck down and then you hook understring and up. Now you can create all kinds of effects with that, such as this. Okay, now that's double thumbing. So pluck down with the thumb and back up with the back of the nail. And all I'm doing is just plucking the top string in between that. Okay, now that was the final technique of this video. As always, if you have any questions, any comments at all, please put them in the comment section or send me a message. I'll answer any questions I can in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe and share. Also check out my site below. If you'd like to support my charitable causes and things that I do, please visit my Patreon account. Also my web address will be down there to find out about what I'm up to and my charity work and such. So yes, thank you for watching my video.